And especially when I was your age, I had no idea that what I do now for a living was even possible. So I'm very excited to be here just to tell you guys about the fact that this could be a reality for you. When I was your age, I had no idea that composing music for TV, movies, and commercials was even a possibility. So first and foremost, that's just what I'm bringing to you today. It's just the possibility, the idea that this could be a full-time income for you. It actually could be a career for you if you want it to be. Most people think that when you get into the music business, you have to be, Justin Bieber or Nicki Minaj to be successful. You have to be some multi-platinum selling artist, selling out arenas all over the world to make a living. And that's not true. I'm somebody who you've probably obviously never met, probably never heard of before, but I can guarantee you at least 50 to 75% of you have already heard my music. Now, you didn't hear it on the radio and you didn't download it through iTunes or anything like that. You probably heard it on American Idol or a commercial for Ford or Nike or Jack in the Box or Keeping Up with the Kardashians or The Voice, many, many other TV shows, commercials, and movies that my music has been featured in. And so that's how I've been able to make a living, is actually to what they call license, which means sort of give permission to people to use your music. And in exchange for them giving you permission, or you giving them permission rather, to use your music, you get what are known as royalties. You actually get paid recurring royalties that happen over and over again. So if, let's say, an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians airs on a particular network, well, I get paid every time that particular episode airs. So you guys can imagine that, every reality show and every TV show and every commercial airs not just once, but multiple times, right? And so my income is generated from those TV shows, those productions, those movies getting played over and over and over again. And so that's essentially what I do for a living. And I work from my home studio. I basically produce my own music. I compose my own music. It's a pretty simple studio. It's not a very fancy one. If you want to get started in this business, you can literally get started with a laptop. If you do want to get started doing what I'm doing, what I recommend is, like, immediately today when you get home, is you got to have some software on your computer that can help you create music. You have to be able to produce your own music. So the days of thinking that, you'll just be a great singer and some big producer or a record label is going to come and swoop you up and pick you up, or you'll get on American Idol or something, or The Voice, and then you'll blow up that way. It's just the odds are highly stacked against you. And I'm not a person that likes to rely on luck for my success. I like to make my own luck. And in order to do that, you have to be in control of your music as much as possible, which means you do have to produce and make your own tracks. Now, you can do this these days very easy, though. If you guys have ever heard of Fruity Loops or Ableton Live or Pro Tools or Logic Pro, these are all programs that are fairly inexpensive. Some of them are even free. And you can actually create your own awesome sounding tracks with a laptop and headphones. You don't even have to have speakers these days. Eventually, you might want to build yourself up to having a full studio if you want to work that way. But I can tell you, you can get started right now at your age, getting good at making your own beats, making your own tracks. How many of you guys have heard of SoundCloud.com? Few of you, all of you. Okay, cool. SoundCloud is awesome as far as figuring out what the latest sounds are, what the latest producers are doing, how to basically, get yourself into a community of people that are being creative musically, to challenge yourself to try to get your tracks and your songs to sound as good as some of the professionals out there, the guys that are really making their full-time income from this. So I'd recommend get your music on SoundCloud. Yeah, your first couple of songs might not be obviously that great, and they're not going to sound as good as somebody who's been doing it for 10, 20 years, But it doesn't matter, because honestly, I sucked terribly when I first got into this business. My first songs that I produced are so bad I wouldn't even play for you guys. It's just laughable. Not to mention the music that Matt and I used to make when we were kids. We thought it was good. It was probably pretty terrible. But obviously you learn as you get better at this, right? The more that you practice something, the better you get at it. I mean, most of you guys, the first time you got on a bicycle, you guys probably fell over and scraped your knees and you were embarrassed and it felt really bad. Well, you just keep going at it, and eventually you take it for granted that you can just jump on a bike and ride it around. It's no big deal. And it's the same concept for everything in life, that you can't be afraid to just kind of suck at something in the beginning, because we all do. We're all terrible at something when we first start. But the key is you have to just keep getting back up and keep going for it. And not only that, learn from your mistakes. So whatever it is that you did, let's say going back to the bike analogy, if you had bad balance or there was something that was tipping you over, you sort of pay attention to that next time so that this time you fix that mistake and you're much more likely to succeed. And it's the same thing with producing music. Your first couple of songs will sound terrible. They're not going to sound that great. But then you start comparing it to what the professionals out there are doing through a website like SoundCloud. And then eventually, you know, day after day, week after week, month after month, you'll start to become a very polished and great sounding music producer and composer and songwriter. Now, if you wanted to get started, that would be step one. Step two would be you have to develop relationships with what are known as music libraries. Now, these are companies, their entire job, they have one job to do on planet Earth, and their only job is to go find awesome music from people like you and like me, and then find TV shows to put that music in. So I don't directly deal with somebody like, let's say, crazy examples like Steven Spielberg, who directs these huge blockbuster movies, or Michael Bay or somebody like that. I am obviously not going to be getting on the phone with these big people to negotiate a license every time they want to use a song. There are people in the middleman basically, that help collect tons and tons of songs, like literally thousands of tracks, that they can go to a Steven Spielberg and say, hey, I know you have this great big awesome movie coming out. You probably are going to need 10, 20, 30, or 40 songs for that new film. Would you like to come look through our catalog, our entire music library of songs that you can license? You can use them however you'd like to, and we'll negotiate a fee, basically. And so those are sort of my representatives out there in the business. They're the ones that are going and getting me these TV show placements, these licensing opportunities, and then they basically deliver me my income by doing that. And there's a few different companies here and there that basically help out with that, but that's generally how this business works. It starts with you as the composer, as the songwriter. You send your music to a company that can get you the TV placements so you can get your music, you know, actually aired. And then obviously whoever's creating the TV show, they're the last person in the line of this formula. And so with all three of these entities, you can create a full-time income by just creating music that ends up on TV shows, movies, and commercials. So that's generally how it works. I mean, my music that I personally produce, I do pop, EDM, dance music. I've done a little bit of dubstep, but dubstep's kind of out these days, so I don't do that so much. Recently, I'm trying to really get into trap music. I love trap music, even though that's kind of even, a year or so or too old now. That's probably going to be leaving soon. But I constantly am challenging myself to keep up with the modern trends of what's going on the radio, what modern artists are coming up with. It doesn't mean that I compromise what I want to do. I still want to make the music that I want to make, but I have to keep up with the trends. Otherwise, I'll sound like, you know, my music is like a decade old, 10 years old, and that's just going to kill my career. I'm not going to be relevant anymore. So I have to make sure that my music sounds like the modern stuff that's coming out now. And so, yeah, so I do rock, pop, EDM. I grew up listening to like metal and punk rock music and stuff, so that's kind of where my soul is. That's just where my roots are. I always go back to that. Really aggressive rock music is really what I like. But all kinds of music can get placed, so it doesn't matter what you want to do. So if you do pop, you do EDM, you do hip hop, it doesn't matter. Everything can get placed, but it has to sound good, all right? Not just any track or any song that you put together is guaranteed going to get a placement, right? You got to make sure your stuff sounds just as good as everybody else out there that's in this business. And again, that goes back to just keep practicing. That's the only way you're going to get there. So I believe I've run out of things to talk about. If there's any specific questions you guys have, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great questions. We got tons of them. Yeah.
How much competition do you have in this field?
How much competition? Okay. It's high. There's a lot of competition, but I will tell you this. It is not easy to succeed in this business for one simple reason, and that is that it takes time to build up a long-term income. So this isn't, and that's a great question, by the way. I should have addressed that. This industry is not one typically like most jobs you'll see out there. And by the time you guys graduate, you'll probably see less and less of the traditional type of jobs where, you know, you apply for it. They say, great, here's what your salary will be. Here's what we can pay you. And here's what your hours will be. That is sort of going away in quick terms. It's going to be going away pretty quickly. So in this industry, you have to keep at this for at least 1, probably 2 years before you start making enough money to make your full-time income. So that means you better have a lot of savings, right? Like if you have bills you have to pay, you guys are obviously young and very lucky right now and enjoy your life right now. You have no bills or nothing like that to worry about. You have your other concerns. I'm not saying everything's easy, but when you don't have bills to pay, that's why I'm saying take advantage of this time in your life right now that you have all this time. Hopefully, I know you guys are busy, but maybe you can make some time for yourself to really start honing in on your skill and your craft at this early age, so you'll be ahead of the game by the time you turn 18 and you start, maybe leaving the house and getting your own place and kind of moving on with your life. You'll have all these skills ready to go, and maybe even start building up some of your royalties before you even leave the house. That would be really, really cool. But the reason why there's both a lot of competition but also not that much is that because it takes about 2 years before your income will get to the point where you can really do this full time, most people just kind of give up, right? They get 6 months, a year into this business and they realize, wow, I'm not making enough money to live off of this. I got to go get a job and do something else because this isn't cutting it. I can't pay my bills doing this. And that's why most people end up just leaving. And so there's very few of us that have maintained a full-time income doing this just because of that principle, that it's just like this kind of big test. Can you make it 2 years essentially working on something without getting paid much, if not anything, from? It's easier said than done. That is a hard thing to do, to work on something for 2 years and not really see the benefits of it for that entire period. You got to really have faith in yourself. You got to really believe that this could work out for you. And then, you need to have either a financial situation on the side, like maybe you have a part-time job that pays your bills, or maybe you save up a lot, right? You put a lot of money in the bank so that you can pay your bills for a while. There's a couple of ways to do it. Myself, I basically was doing this, like I had a full-time job when I got started, and when I would get home at 6 p.m., I just do nothing but make music till 2, 3 in the morning. Wake up at 8 o'clock, go to my day job, same thing the next day, rinse and repeat. The weekends, that's all I would do. Wake up, crank out music Saturdays and Sundays. So I did this every waking moment, every free moment that I had. And it took a toll on my life. My social life suffered. I wasn't going out and hanging out with friends that much. I didn't see my family as much as I probably could have or should have. There were a lot of things that I basically had to sacrifice in order to do this. So that's why I say there's a lot of people trying to do it, but when they sort of are faced with what it really takes to succeed in this business, most people just don't have what it takes. They don't have that pure, whatever you call it, human will to get through the difficult obstacles that do come your way. So this is by no means is this an easy business to be a part of, but it is very enjoyable, and it's really cool to be able to do what you love for a living. And considering the music business right now, it's going through a big transitional phase. I'm finding that this side of the business, as far as TV licensing, making your music just for TV shows, is one of the most profitable segments of the industry left. And that's because, actually, I want to do a show of hands for you guys. How many of you have bought an album this year, or a single? Actually purchased it. Actually went on iTunes, made a purchase. Okay, a couple of you guys. How many of you guys normally get your music for free through YouTube or SoundCloud or Facebook or whatever, Pandora, other services? Okay. I see a lot more hands for that one. That is typically where the world is going right now. So for those artists like the Justin Biebers, the Nicki Minaj's, Beyonce's, etc., they are struggling to sell their records because the next generation of people, you guys, the next generation that grew up with the internet, you guys have been conditioned to just accept and get music for free. And it's not, I'm not saying there's anything right or wrong about that. My generation, I grew up, it was like you had to pay for music. I mean, you could listen to the radio for free, but you had to listen to commercials, and it was kind of annoying. So if you wanted to listen to commercial-free music, you had to go pay for it. And these days, that's not the case. There's a lot of free services out there. So for better or for worse, that's just the world that we're entering into. But every time that you listen to a song for free, that used to be, let's say, a 99-cent purchase that would have gone partially into the pocket of Justin Bieber or Nicki Minaj. Now, they're not poor. I'm not saying these people are poor. They're very wealthy. But they're wealthy through other means of marketing themselves and selling merch and concert tickets and all that kind of stuff. So the industry right now is going through a big transitional phase where artists are not necessarily even making much, if not any, money selling their albums. However, in the TV film world, there are production companies like, you have somebody like an ABC or an NBC or a CBS or HBO. I mean, these are massive corporations that have millions and billions of dollars, and they really do care about putting the right kind of music in their TV shows and in their commercials, because if they have this, movie they just spent whatever, $50 million on the budget, and they go play some really crappy sounding karaoke song, it's going to really take away from the production value of what you're watching. You're going to go like, yeah, the video looked great, but what was up with that song? It was a really weird song. So they're not going to skip on the budget for the music. They're actually going to pay a really accomplished composer or songwriter or producer a very great rate for that, because they need to make sure they have high quality music. So I'm finding myself that this industry provides a long-term career for you. And if you are lucky to become the next pop star out there, are you going to have a career that lasts more than 5 years? Very unlikely. Most pop stars, like, they come out with 1 or 2 albums and then you don't hear from them again. They're gone. You guys think about who was hot in 2012, 2013. Some of them are still around, but many of them, they come and go, right? This is a very fickle industry, and if you're not sort of the cute young thing anymore that everybody wants to jump on board with, especially if the labels are signing them, there's somebody new coming around the corner who's younger and cuter and has a more catchier song, and you get pushed off the label, right? You just kind of get forgotten about, and that's the end of your career. Essentially, you got to move on to something else. In this business, what I do, I'm completely behind the scenes. Nobody knows what I look like. Nobody really even knows my name. It's just essentially they're judging me by my music. If my music is awesome, they're going to place it, and then I'm going to get a royalty check. So if you're in this to try to get famous, this is not going to be a good business for you, because nobody, like I said, you guys have never heard of me before, but most of you have probably heard my music. And I like it that way. I don't want the fame. I don't want anybody knowing who I am. I don't need any of that attention in my life. I like to just focus on making music and doing this for a living. It's just what I enjoy personally for myself, and I don't need other people to be paying attention to that so much, okay? So it's one way to know if this is going to be a business that will suit you well. If you just love making music, right? You're in this for the craft of just like creating awesome melodies or awesome songs, or you feel like you can actually compose an entire track and you just love that process, you're going to do awesome in this business. If you're trying to get famous, if you think you're going to do this and you're going to wind up on some episode of TMZ, dream on. Not going to happen. Nobody cares about you. It's not going to, you're not going to get any attention from the media or the press doing this kind of thing. It can be exciting though, right? I mean, sometimes I'm watching TV and I'll just be listening kind of in the background, and suddenly one of my shows or one of my songs is playing on a show, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. Like, millions of people just heard one of my songs. So it does give you a thrill, and it's really exciting. But again, there's no credit on the screen that says this was made by Jesse and look at him and isn't he cool? Like, there's no attention given to me at all. It's just just a song playing in the background, and all I see is like, great, that's a placement. That means I'm getting paid for that one. That's awesome, right? So anyways, that was a really great question, man. That's one difference between what I do and what a lot of pop artists do. She said,
what's the most enjoyable part about your job?
Most enjoyable part, like I said before, is just creating music. If it's hard to describe, I mean, you guys, most of you are musicians yourself. You love singing, you whatever. If I asked you, like, let's say you're a singer, and I said, what's your favorite part about singing? You'd kind of just say singing, wouldn't you? You just love it. Like, there's something about the act itself, the craft of either singing along to a song you love, or performing in front of people, or maybe even writing your own melodies and lyrics. There's just something about the act of performing and writing that is just an enjoyable thing. It's just sort of an expression of your creativity. So I would say, aside from getting the sort of like satisfaction of seeing that my songs are getting placed in pretty big productions, I'd say it's literally when I'm by myself in my studio creating an awesome new track, or I come up with a drum beat that's just like making me headbang, and jump around, and like when I give myself goosebumps from a song that I'm creating. That's basically my favorite part about doing what I do. If the song that I've created it got me so excited that I'm literally like calling up my friends, like, dude, you gotta listen to this. This is the craziest stuff I've ever produced. Or I'm instantly sending it to all my friends and emailing it to people and say, oh, you gotta check this out. If it gets me excited, then I've literally just gave myself like a huge boost in life, a huge energy boost in life. And it all came from just like an idea in my head. And so that's kind of a magical, really cool thing that not many careers out there provide for people. A lot of people don't have that sort of like energy that they get from doing what they love to do. So I'm very thankful and grateful that I have that ability to do this. But again, does not come easy. This was not something that you just sort of stumble into. This is something you really have to push extra hard, because everybody and their grandma makes music, right? We all have somebody that like, oh, I have, I make beats, I do this, I do that. Everybody makes music, but there's not many people who persevere, right? So that's really what I'll drive home to you guys today is persevering, pushing hard, and always going forward. Even if you don't do what I'm doing, right? Whatever it is you eventually want to get into and go for, 90% of the battle will be just showing up. You just have to keep showing up for whatever it is you want to get accomplished, whatever goal you set up for yourself, whatever you're trying to do, keep showing up. Because most people, they just leave. They try once, they run into a little bit of an obstacle. Ooh, it's not as easy as I thought it was. All right, I'll get distracted and go do something else. That's most people. Most people do that. So for you to succeed, most of the time, all you have to do is just don't be that. Just don't like walk away from something when you get a couple of obstacles in your way or a couple of things that seem like this might be a little bit harder than you thought. Because just remember, wait a minute, 90% of people are going to think that same thing and they're going to walk away. So maybe I could be a part of that 10% that just push through feeling this way. And I'll get to the other side of this. And I can tell you, once you get to the other side of it, it's so much simpler. It is true that your first couple of years in this business are the hardest ones. And once you get past the barriers, I'm getting phone calls from people that I've never met before, and they're trying to hire me for pretty big projects now. I don't know how these people found me. I don't know how they're getting my phone number, but because I'm inside of this business, my name and my phone number get passed around because I've established a pretty good reputation for being on time, producing good music, and a guy that's generally easy to get along with. And if you have those qualities about yourself, you will find yourself also being surrounded by people who are successful and who want to pass work to you and pass you opportunities. So persist, persist, persist. If you take anything away from this presentation today, just keep at whatever you want to keep at. That'll literally take you through every obstacle and every problem you have in your life. So, any other questions?
Whoa. Who's got a good one? Rhea? Say it loud so we can hear you.
Okay. Do you have any memorable stories about your job that you would like to share?
Memorable stories. Let me think about that. I've had some cool stories that sort of came out of my job, but they didn't actually involve TV film licensing. Aside from getting like a phone call from some huge production company that's like, hey, we got a nationwide commercial, we'd like to hire you. And I say, hey, how'd you find me? And they go, I don't know, your name just appeared on my desk. That's kind of crazy. But other than that, I'm sorry to disappoint you. There's not a lot of crazy stuff because, I'm not a musician touring on the road where I have crazy stories from the road. I can tell you one fun, the kind of touring story. So back in the day, do any of you guys know who David Banner is? Some of you guys know? He's a rapper. Anyways, he had like a couple of hits back in, I think, the earlier mid 2000s. And this guy's huge in Mississippi. This guy's, he basically put their city on the map. For other reasons, they've been on the map too, but he really put them on the map for this hip hop movement that was going on. And I ended up getting hired to be his guitar player for a couple of live shows down in Mississippi in Jackson, where he's from, where it's like his hometown. And I've never had this situation happen where, we're about to go perform and the sheriff and the police department literally escorted us through the entire city like he was the prince of that city. Like they literally cleared traffic for him, completely took everybody off the road. And I was just like a deer in the headlights. I had no idea I didn't know this was the kind of treatment this guy got there. But it was kind of crazy to be just like in this cascade of just all these crazy cars and police cars that were basically escorting us through the entire city, blocking people out. And then they had this whole police line for us and escorting us like literally from his house to the stage. It was the craziest thing I've ever been a part of. But, other than that, I don't have many crazy stories for you guys as far as being on the road or doing something like that. Because like I said, it's pretty boring, but like good boring, right? You're actually just in your home, in your studio, creating music, doing what you want to do. So yeah, I'm going to have to disappoint you a little bit on that one. Nothing too crazy, but I am not so much of a crazy guy anyways. I don't want that kind of high energy, nutty things going on in my life. I like things to be nice and predictable, nice and steady. That's just kind of how I am, just my personality anyway. So I think that's why partially I ended up where I am here. So if your personality is more like you want to have the stage, you want the bright lights, you want the craziness, this probably won't satisfy you in that way. So anyways, any other questions?
Jackie, what happens if you run out of inspiration?
What happens if I run out of inspiration? That's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that one. It happens to everybody, and all of you guys who write music. I don't know if you've faced that yet, but you will. I guarantee you will face a day or a time, maybe even it lasts a couple of weeks or a month, that you just don't feel like making music. And we all deal with that as creative people. Now, the problem is if you're just doing music for fun, big deal, right? You just go do something else until your inspiration comes back. This is my job, though. Like, I have to do this to keep my income coming in. So I can't afford to have too many days where I don't feel like making music. So it's absolutely impossible for me to allow myself to get to the point where I'm so depressed or not feeling inspired that I sort of lose my career, right? So in order to stay inspired, I have a couple of things that I do. One is I'm always listening to other artists. I'm addicted, hopelessly addicted to YouTube. I'm watching everybody. Like, I love the behind the scenes videos. If you guys ever watch your favorite artists, just type in their name and then type in recording in studio or whatever. And I love watching the creative process happen on camera. So I have some of my favorite bands that they put out videos of them like composing or writing or recording. And they're goofing off and joking around, and that's funny and stuff. But just watching other people being creative inspires me. Also, I go to live shows all the time. I'm always showing up to live performances. There's nothing like music that's just so loud that it's thumping in your chest, right? It's like pushing you around the room. Like, that'll get you started, right? That'll get you absolutely, whatever funk you're in, that'll get you out of your funk immediately. I also have a network of really talented, awesome producers and composers that I interact with online, and we inspire each other. So if one of us is feeling a little down, a little depressed, a little not feeling it, we try to inspire each other. We try to push each other. We try to send each other tracks and get ourselves really excited and motivated. And lastly, installing and trying new plugins, like new synthesizers, or trying a new drum beat out, or a new guitar, or just something new sonically, like for your audio sensibility, so that your ears hear something new. It sometimes can just perk up and stimulate ideas. So if you're actually just trying a synthesizer and you're playing some sort of a crazy note pattern, and the sound is just like speaking to you, sometimes that can inspire you to get out of your funk and just keep riding. But yeah, when you get into doing what I'm doing for a living, you can maybe afford to have a day or two once a month where you're just kind of like, just not feeling like it. Or maybe you have like an hour here and there, and it definitely happens to me. It happened just to me yesterday, actually. I had recorded and I was working on this project, and 30 minutes into it, my program crashed, and that literally just took all the wind out of my sails. I just wanted to like throw my computer out the window. I was so frustrated. I was so bummed out and just wanted to give up. And typically in that situation, there's anger and there's frustration going on in my brain. And I can't be creative and be positive with music when I'm feeling this sort of like anger, right? So I have to go do something else. A lot of times for me, it's exercise. I have to go outside, take a walk, get some sunshine on my face, get some fresh air, maybe go to the gym, work out, do something physical to get rid of this extra energy that now is built up inside of me, this anger that I had. I have to get rid of that completely, exercise it away in a healthy way, right? Nothing destructive to myself, but something beneficial to myself. And then I can come back and have a fresh pair of ears, fresh pair of eyes. I feel calm, I feel relaxed, all that kind of stuff. So if you're ever feeling uninspired or not motivated, sometimes just walking away from your computer or from your creative process just for a time, right? Just know that you're not giving up, you're taking a break, right? We all need breaks from everything, even stuff we love, even our friends, even our family, right? We always need a break, even from the things that we really enjoy and we like spending time on. It's still healthy to walk away from time to time, be by yourself, collect your thoughts. And so you can come back even stronger and more prepared next time. So
he asked, do you just use music making software, or do you also use instruments?
Good question. So most of the stuff that I do is straight from my keyboard. So I use mostly software-based instruments. So if I need pianos or strings or drums, sometimes even bass guitar, crazy synthesizer sound effects, that's all coming through either like a sample that I'm using or my keyboard. I do have guitars that I record and plug in when I need to record a live guitar, but that's about it. I mean, I don't even really record bass guitar as much as I used to. These days there are plugins that make my bass guitar sound terrible. I have actually plugins that actually sound even better than my live bass guitar. So I would say if you guys want to get started in this, get great at keyboards, at piano. That's because that'll be your number one instrument when you're composing and creating tracks. So you can make every instrument straight from your piano. You can make your drum beat from it, and I do that every single day. and you can compose like an entire string orchestra just from your piano. Obviously, you got to have samples and plugins that sound really good. But your keyboard these days, in this new age, this new era of the music industry, is your absolute, this is where music will be created. And I do think that coming soon, within a couple of years, we're going to have new musical instruments that you've never seen before, you never heard before. And they're already out, but they're not really out there for the consumption. But you're going to have things that are basically a hologram sitting in front of your computer where you can literally touch parts of it and it will do different things to a sound, and you can literally spin it to make it do a different sound, and there will be a physical thing, a physical object in a hologram form where you can actually create music from it, and there'll be other weird cool instruments that are coming out, and I can't wait for that because I'm a terrible piano player, and I'm not that great of a quote-unquote composer, so most of the stuff that I do is just sort of like using my ears and like, is this good enough or whatever. And if I had some sort of a really cool three-dimensional object that I could actually like manually adjust just with my fingers, it's going to make me a crazy awesome composer. So I'm excited for these new technologies that will be coming shortly, and it's definitely coming in my career. And by the time you guys graduate high school and start getting out into the workforce or whatever you're going to do afterwards, this whole industry is going to be completely revolutionized once again. So you guys got to make sure you keep up to date with what the latest trends are, what the latest things are, and that's why I say getting onto websites like SoundCloud to make sure you're aware of what these latest trends are, what the latest producers are doing, because they'll tell you about like what programs they're using and what software instruments that they're using and creating their tracks with. So you got to make sure you're up to date on all that stuff.